rolling this idea of transformative learning out to the division. It's a question that we sort of hear implied in what people are doing, and sometimes what feels like maybe a silo or a vacuum at times is, when does my program become transformative, right? So when do we reach that threshold of, we have now made it, this program is now seen as being transformative, we've reached our outcomes, the students who participate in our program will now be transformed. And so in thinking about that question, and even thinking about how we sort of think about leadership, sometimes it's not so much about the solutions as it is about asking better questions to find more viable solutions. So we had to ask, is that even the right question to ask, right? So beginning to think about not so much about how our programs work and operate and possibly what can be seen as like a silo or a vacuum. So what does that mean for us individually? Because many of us look at our programs as being, well, how does this one program equal transformative pieces without the complement of all the other programs that happen around campus? We even advertise our programs to what we say is all students. That's impossible to advertise to all students. So really beginning to think about being more intentional and purposeful around even who we invite to these programs. Having someone even ask, I think Susie asked me the question of, so leadership, so who is that sort of like, who's the ideal student for that program? Like any kind of freshman, is it something? We actually have to have answers for those things. We can't just say, well, yeah, all students will work, because sometimes we have to look at the number of students and the intent of the program, and the outcomes, and how does it work with other programs, and how can we introduce them to those programs after they've finished ours. Those are things we have to intentionally think about as much as we think about just the transformative nature of our program itself, those elements and those principles.
Last year, what we learned from all of the tremendous amount of data we collected, we touched about almost 85% of the student body. And so thinking about how all of those programs, all of those initiatives, that sort of thing, how they all complement each other, and really putting a sort of different perspective on, are there ways to think about how students move through our programs in such a way that we can learn about their transformative journey, right? Rather than disassociated evaluations at the end of the program or things like that, are there ways to make these things talk to each other? And that's one of the points of us getting in the room today, and kind of where we'll end up through the day. Okay, so we're going to switch gears a little bit, and there's a couple caveats before we switch gears. So we looked into the literature, and we did some searches of the research to see, okay, so we've got our domains of learning and service, we have transformative learning, and whatever might make something transformative. Where do those two bodies of literature intersect, right? And so what we're going to share with you now by domain is sort of what we found as principles that sort of appear in the domain. So like, for instance, with career discovery and development, what are the things that pop out in the literature for a program that purports to be transformative in the area of career discovery and development? Now, I want to say, this is not an exhaustive list. This is not an exhaustive literature review. And actually, some of this literature was really hard to find because it's not using words like transformative, or it might be thinking of programs as specific programs, as interventions, things like that. There's not a lot of longitudinal data connecting programs to each other across programs. So it's kind of exciting because where we're going is kind of uncharted territory in the literature, which of course nerds me out a little bit. I get pretty pumped about that, but so it goes. But anyway, so we're going to share a little bit about that. And then actually there's a document on Canvas that we'll be referencing too, but for those of you that don't have computers, as we move through this part of the presentation, it'll become important in the work session, but I can go around and share that document with you.